I'm going to talk about two medieval bone assemblages and one Iron Age. I'm not going to mention all the research I did there, but I have chosen some specific questions to explain how I work some aspects of these bones. Because animal bones can tell us many things, so many things. As Janan already mentioned to you, the questions and the methods have become very wide. But what the animal remains can tell to us. Firstly, they can talk to us about past environment. And obviously, the first thing you learn is what was the past fauna in the place where you work, the past animals. The animals were there. Apart from this list of animals, you can get environmental and climatic proxies from them. You can get ideas and information about the land use and the shaping of landscapes. And also you can understand the human exploitation and pressure on animal populations and the consequences of it in the environment and societies. What is more, and especially the last decades became important, is you can try to learn from the past animal populations in order to inform contemporary questions, contemporary problems, such as conservation or sustainability of natural resources. But of course, and perhaps most important for us who are archaeologists, originating archaeological studies and aiming there, we can learn a lot of things about past societies. Number one in the top, of course, is the economy. That was the driving force for archaeological studies. The diet, food consumption and preferences, and cuisine of the people you are studying. You can learn, of course, about ideology of those people. You can learn about the social structure of these societies as various restrictions, either social restrictions, either beliefs or economic situations can define who has got access to which animals. You can do studies that will eliminate the use of space within a settlement as it concerns animal-related activities like animal slaughter or carcass processing, cooking, market, selling, and so on. And of course, you can learn a lot about crafts because many animal products are used to provide a lot of materials for people. Of course, we are not studying the final product. We mostly will see the waste, bone working waste or leather working waste, and so on. The techniques that I will use in discussing these bone assemblages are first the species proportions, as we will say. The most common I'd always done in the zooarchaeological studies. I want to see which animals are found in the site at what proportions. This is an economic decision of the people, which of course is influenced by a number of other things, like technology and knowledge of the time, environment as it is expressed by opportunities and constraints, and obviously also ideology, beliefs, traditions, and preferences. The next technique I will use is the skeletal representation. Here we are looking at which bones of the skeleton are present or absent. This actually shows to me how the people used the carcass of the animal, the dead animal. And there can be economic considerations on this. They can be practicalities of dealing with carcasses, with dead animals. And there can be ideology, beliefs, and preferences again. It is a huge discussion, actually, what all these things will mean, but perhaps I should spend more time. The last technique I will use is mortality profiles. Here we look at what age the animals were slaughtered or hunted, if you want to say. So we create a profile to see the mortality of the hunted and slaughtered animals. It will tell us about the management of flocks, how people manage their domestic flocks, or even the wild flocks by selectively hunting animals of certain ages. We could also see what sort of animal products were aimed for, and this is a scene created by Sebastian Payne when he was working here in Turkey, and he already heard about this from Zanan Sakilar. So what we are searching for is if the people are mostly interested in the meat of the animal or the byproduct, the secondary products of the animal, milk and wool. And I'm going to apply these things in 3 sites. One is the Amorium, which is here in Afton Karahisar, Kirkenes in Yozgat, and Komana in Tokat. Starting with Amorium, let's see what is Amorium. It's a large city, it's the capital of the Anatolikon theme. And here you see some map of the earliest phase, one of the early phase of Amorium, and how Byzantine Empire would look at that time. We are somewhere here. And what is important also, this city is the birthplace of a dynasty of Byzantine emperors, the Amorian or Phrygian dynasty, as they could call it. 3 emperors only, not too many. This one is the most famous in the middle here, Theophilus, who was to some extent the cause of the siege of Amorium. Theophilus spent a lot of time fighting with Arabs, and sometimes he was successful, sometimes he was not. At one point, he sacked Sozopetra, and Al-Mutassim was very angry with him. He turned to revenge, and he made an attack to the Anatolian lads, first capturing Ankara and then Amorium. So it gave an important point for the history of this city. What the bones from Amorium could tell me. I have centered my question around this sick. We have a sick, destruction, abandonment, and rehabilitation. So for me, the destruction layer is a sort of a time capsule. We are talking about the actual destruction layer, the bones that I will talk for this period. The 9th century AD will be really in the burnt layer that the city was burnt by the Arabs. And I want to investigate what happened to the Amorium. How was the Amorium economy before, during the siege, and after? Here is the map of the Amorium. The materials I'm going to talk are coming mostly from here. So my species proportions, the first thing that I'm looking at, simplified, I must say, to you with an ECP. As you can see, the pre-siege Amorium, the blue one, has got a little cattle and a huge amount of sheep and goats, and with minor amounts of everything else. It apparently shows a trend that is very common in all Anatolian studies, sites. Sheep and goats, the most common animals to be found anywhere. It is interesting to note that during the siege and after this, the sheep and goat reduces. The place of this in the reduction is taken by pig. I guess in the siege time, the increase of the pig may mean the difficulty of the people to have access to the countryside, while the Arab armies are marching through Anatolia from Ankara to reach to the Amorium. And but pigs are animals that are more easy to keep within their walls. The same probably means the reduction in the cattle, the difficulties of the sick. At the same time, you may see that there is an increase in chicken also at the sick time, which again I interpreted as an animal for times of need. What is more, I could say, for this graph is a decrease on hunting, as you see, and here these other animals are a variety of wild and domestic animals, pack animals. So overall, I could say that Amorium, throughout its life, in all the three phases, the economy of it is based on sheep and goat, with some important fluctuations during the SIG and after the SIG. It looks like the economy of the of sheep and goat has not really recovered and is probably replaced with supplements of pig meat much more than we had before. I have also looked at the mortality profiles for cattle. I didn't have much information, but what I could only conclude is that the animals in the 7th and 9th century, that is before the Sig and during the Sig, are killed at an older age than the animals after the Sig. The Sig and the goat profiles gave me the information that these animals in common in all the three periods, we have the majority of deaths at 2 to 4 years. That is a typical meat-taming strategy. 2 to 3 years, actually, that would be the ideal. It is not a surprise because, as I said before, this is a large city and obviously needs to be provided with meat from the countryside, obviously. So we are cutting the city consumption of meat. We have a good number of older animals for all the periods. That is an indication for the use of the secondary secondary products like milk and wool. But we have got a complete lack of young lambs, young animals in all periods, which is a requirement according to Painting. When we have got a milk targeted economy, we are expecting to have many young lambs. The people purposefully kill them in order to save the milk of their mother for their own use. So what could we say here? Maybe these older animals are actually kept for wool. We know that there is a big wool textile industry in these times in Anatolia. Nevertheless, I think we shouldn't rush to interpret this like a wool-only industry mortality profile, because again, we are in a big city. It is possible that these young lambs that were killed, if they were going to take the milk of the mothers, have remained in the countryside and consumed by the people in the rural settlements. Nevertheless, we see also some difference. We see more old animals in the 9th century. In the layer of the 838 also, we have got a concentration of 2 to 4 years. And again, at the 10th century, 10th, 11th century, we have younger animals killed, like it was the case with the cattle. It appears that the 10th, 11th century animal economy has seen some change, mostly becoming a consumer city stronger than we have seen in the previous ages, and this may reflect some decline in the country of this later Byzantine periods. It seems perhaps the economy before the Sig was more robust and more directed towards the production of wool or secondary products. It seems to me that perhaps the economy at this time, after the sea, is mostly the craft industries. Maybe they have been disorganized at this time. I had some surprises at Amorium, as I had in just about every side, things that I didn't look for, that they came across to me. And here I'm showing to you a case for crafts. You can see I have a concentration of very small, tiny bones. They are the extremities, the phalanges and the metapodia of sheep. And what they were, they were a big bag of such foot bones. They are, with the measurements I took, they are newborn or maybe even unborn, and about 142 animals were counted that are not included, of course, in the graphs I showed you before. What for this you could say, this is a very specific, typical signature of a tannery, a place where leather is prepared. But the age of the animals is striking, that they are killed so young or died so young, which pointed to me out that I may have there a tannery specialized processing a luxury product such as Astrakhan. I had another special bug. These are earlier, 5th, 7th century AD. Rodents are animals that I don't like because I think they are mostly intrusive. They dig up holes in the soil and they enter the archaeological deposit. But the excavator of this site confirmed that this is a safe context, and these rodents belong to the 5th or 7th century. This was a good opportunity for me to deduce some environmental implications of how was the situation around Amorium. And when you look at the habitat of these animals, with the exception of Microtus, who likes more wet environments, but can live in a very wide range of habitats, most of them are animals of semi-arid, dry lands, even deserts, open and sparse vegetation, which tells me that the 5th, 7th century Amorium area around Amorium was already what is today as well, a very dry, semi-arid land. The publication for this is here, yeah, you may see. I'm passing quickly to the next one, Komana. Komana is a multi-phase settlement near Tokats, and we have got fights from late Chalcolithic to Ottoman. And we are in another time now. We are in a period when Danishmend and Seljuks are in their apodium. So we are somewhere here at the time that the site takes change hands between Danishmends and Seljuks. This is the site before the excavation, and this is the area about which I'm going to talk to you. At the top of it, at the top of an acropolis, we have got a workshop located here, which has got a very large number of ovens, pits, and various waste of the workshop, glass waste, ceramic waste, bone waste, mercury cups, slag, and all sorts of these things. Here is a picture of this thing, this phase, and what I want to examine there is that if this area represents a particular society segment that is dealing with manufacturing activities. So what I what I expect here is that I'm going to see a consumption pattern the animal bones, and that this pattern may represent this working class. Of course, we have no idea what a working class is for this time, and if it is really a working class that we are talking about. But I go with this hypothesis. Maybe I will look again at the species proportions, try to see if there is a preference for certain species, and at the skeletal representation, thinking that we probably have not complete animals. There, somebody brings food to them to eat, or they buy it from a market. So maybe some parts of the animals will be more favored than others. So here is my NICP graph, and as you can see, again, sipped goat, always there, never going a little reside at all. The most common animals consumed as sipped goat. Cattle is clearly high also, but we don't have the pig. What we have instead of this, chicken. Is chicken this what I was searching for? The preferences to specific animals? It might be. The problematic part to interpret this is that we have got a Muslim population probably here, I would expect, and pig is really absent from most of the materials of the last two layers. The place of it clearly is taken by chicken. So it might be an ideological change rather than an economic change. Here I'm looking to the skeletal representation, and I have divided the categories in head and legs, and I think I have some. Do you see clearly my screen? Oh, okay. I have, oh, sorry, I think I passed one of my slides. Okay. Yes. Here I have got my skeletal representation. I separated front legs, back legs, extremities, axial skeleton. There is almost nothing there to say, so neither for cattle, neither for ovicaprids, sheep and goat. I think there is no pattern. So there is no indication for me. I was searching for this working class. I couldn't find it. Any of these exercises. So Komana and Amorium, I think more or less similar, with the exception that Komana clearly has got much more cattle than Amorium, perhaps related to different environments that we have got, more lush, more water, more grasslands, probably in Komana, in contrast with Amorium that we saw that was dry, and probably the real differences between pig and chicken. You see Komana with minimal pig and abundant chicken, and Amorium exactly the opposite trend, probably an ethnic and religious indication. Crafts, yes, here I have got a lot of surprises as well with Komana. Amongst the bone remains, I had a huge number of bones that have various indications of working. For me, the most striking, most interesting were these bones. And this one, it is the phalanges of horses and cattle, but they are chopped off, simply chopped off. There's no other work on them. And I cannot imagine that there is a serious reason to butcher the end of the fingers, let's say, of the animals. Nevertheless, these parties where the hoof is, and I conclude, I think that they chop them to get access to the hoof and use the hoof, sorry, for glue production, probably. You can see this information in this publication here, and I see my time is getting short. I'm coming quickly to cover my last slide, which is Kirkenes. You are in Yozgat. It is a, I think my presentation stuck. I cannot change my slides. Oh, okay. So what is Kirkenes da? Kirkenes is a single period city. It is a city. The single period is about, it lived about 100 years, which is an excellent thing for me, from the point of view that I don't have a lot of disturbance from later or other periods. It is a very large city, actually, very intensively built, and is a strongly defended capital of a new kingdom, an ideal city, as the excavators call it. A new power appears in the Iron Age in the central Anatolia and wants to show its power. So this is Kirkenes in an aerial view. You see the huge fortifications around it. The city has been examined by Geoffrey Summers and Francois Summers, who were working also in my department. They mapped almost the full city with geophysics surveys and did very little excavation. Where they have excavated is here in the Cappadocia Gate, one of the entrances to the city, and here where is the palatial complex, as they call it. This is the palatial complex. You see the map is done only with geophysics. The only excavations are a small portion here and here, and you can see it clearer in this place. You see the trenches, and the other one is this Cappadocia Gate, the huge cyclopic glacis that defended the entrance to the city, one of the entrances to the city. And this is again the plan of the Cappadocia Gate excavations. So what I'm looking here is I want to try to compare and contrast the bones from the palatial complex with the bones from the Cappadocia Gate. The Cappadocia Gate is a place that you don't expect people to go and have lunches, as it is the entrance to the city, and it's not also the place where people will go and throw their rubbish. But apparently there are some remains from the mills, obviously of the people who worked there, and specifically there is one trench, the trench 27, where a close context with a lot of bones and ceramics were found. And according to the excavators, this represents the mills of the people who worked there for reparation of the walls. So I'm trying to see elite and working class again. What did I found? I was, I think, more lucky here. And you can see two pies, one for the Cappadocia Gate, one for the Palatial Complex. I want to tell you that this is diagnostic zone calculations, not an ISP. And the first thing you obviously notice is the much longer list in the palace. This much longer list might relate to the smaller sample size of Cappadocia Gate, but when you see the composition also, the situation is quite different. Looking at the Cappadocia Gate, these people who I call workers, you see that they have got very little consumption of cattle, with most of the pie taken up by sheep and goat. Almost two-thirds, almost three-quarters are taken by sheep and goat. Then we have got some pig and some other animals. Amongst these animals, we have the presence of one wild pig and the presence of one bone of hare, wild animal, and one bone of duck. Here in contrast, we have got quite more cattle, a more expensive animal to kill and consume. The shepherd goat take much less part. We have got pig, and from here on, the majority are wild animals. A very large number of wild animals. Hunting, which probably is unnecessary in the Iron Age. We are years now that, centuries now that we deal, thousands of years we deal with domestic animals, but these people still hunt. Probably related to their elite status rather than need. They don't hunt because of poverty. They hunt because, I guess, of hobby, to show their braveness and their status in the city. And we will say a little bit more about this. So I was satisfied that I did indeed found some differences between the consumption of the workers and the consumption of elite. And my last minute or so of speech for the surprises related to Kirkenes. And again, my presentation is okay. Here I'm in the palatial context, and I have an exceptional find exactly here in the Thread City 27. What is this trench? This trench is right in front of the glaciers, which is put up as a show for the palatial complex. It's not so much a defending feature, rather imitating the entrances and defending walls of the main fortification wall, perhaps to impress probably visitors, because here is the entrance to the palace. So in this city 27, what I have found many animals, all of them are wild. The proportion of, again, diagnostic zones I'm giving here, I have got sheep, goats, cattle, that all occupy this little small proportion of my whole pie. And frankly speaking, I don't know if these sheep and goats and cattle are domestic or wild, because their bones were extremely fragmented and I couldn't judge it. But the vast majority belongs to wild pig, a little bit of fallow deer, this only antlers, maybe it's not really important, and bear. Actually, the protagonists here are wild pig and bear. And what is the most funny thing of all, when I look at the skeletal elements, you see the vast majority of the finds are head elements. I have almost nothing from the rest of the body. So what I get there is a bunch of bones from wild pig, wild boar, all head elements, even the other animals that I have little evidence are still head elements. And I assume that this is a hunter's party, probably again related to the issue I mentioned before, hunting as a hobby of the elite, showing their ability, their skills, their braveness, and so on. But why I have got only heads? That is a very interesting thing for me. It could be possible that these animals were skinned there, and then their bodies taken inside the citadel if they wanted to eat them. But I have no other bone apart from heads. I really have the suspicion that these heads might be trophies rather than butchery waste, that they were displayed at this area to impress visitors to the palace. Another strange thing, if I could change, these are some of these findings. Another strange find that I found also in the Palacio complex was this jaw of a dolphin. I was taken totally aback what a dolphin does in the mountains of Yozgat. It was found inside, close to the Aslan building, and this is the only bone I identified. Maybe there are more. The bones were extremely fragmented and in horrible condition. Yes, I also interpret this like another kind of display rather than a useful meat animal. Perhaps the kings and queens and whoever lived in this palace, maybe they were collecting animals like the Victorians in curiosity cabinets they were doing, or maybe they had some meaning for them, maybe given to them by somebody as a present, or collected in some expedition to the sea. I cannot see it as a food, definitely not a food item. I asked at this time, Jeff, how do you think this dolphin came to the mountains of the Yozgat? The closest sea is about 200 kilometers. On foot, probably takes you ages to come there. And he answered to me by sending me this picture. He thought it's quite possible to bring it up there. Yes, that was my speech. Thank you very much for your attention.